What's up everyone, I'm CallumOnToast, and in today's video I'm going to be showcasing some insane battles in the Fossil Cup, running a triple XL team with Slowpoke, Lileep and Shadow Magnemite, where I actually somehow gained Elo on the day. Now to clarify, I did 6 sets with this team and I only gained about 10 Elo across the entire day, but I was more than ready to sacrifice some Elo to get enough wins for this video, and actually it went way better than I was expecting. There are certainly some huge issues for this team, including Registeel, Ferrothorn and a few others, but I was able to overcome plenty of core breakers with this team, and it was genuinely so fun to run. So with that being said, let's just get into the question of the day. If you could ban a single Pokemon from the Fossil Cup meta, which Pokemon would you choose? Let me know in the comment section down below, and with that being said, let's get into the battles now. Alright, so heading into the first battle, we're going to lead Slowpoke into Registeel. This is obviously an awful lead matchup for us. This is actually the first battle I did for this team, so what I'm going to do is farm to 4 Confusions. I'm going to try and catch a resisted Zap Cannon onto my Lileep, and the opponent does throw the Zap Cannon, which doesn't really help me that much, but it does force them to waste 80 energy, which is quite nice because Registeel very problematic for this team. Lileep is definitely not going to be able to flip this matchup. That debuff to my attack doesn't really make an awful lot of difference, but they go for the Focus Fast, getting the KO. Now, we are switch locked, the opponent isn't, but the opponent probably going to have 2 water types in the back, which I've seen pretty commonly with a steel type in the lead, so they might stay in this matchup. They are going to stay in initially, go for a Focus Pass. I'm going to overfarm here, farming to nearly 100 energy, but unfortunately I overfarmed too much. I lost track of their energy. I think they did farm to 100 up against my Lileep there, but it doesn't matter as they've got a Jellicent in the back. So we go for 1 Volt Switch, we go for the Discharge, going to do the exact same thing here. They're just making it to a Surf, but Discharge number 2 goes unshielded and it gets the KO. The opponent probably thought they could live that, but Shadow Magnemite is insanely attack weighted, actually has a higher attack stat than Shadow Magneton and way higher than Shadow Magnezone. We go for a Discharge, grabbing that final shield. We're now going to swap, and I'm hoping I've just caught a Water Pulse onto my Slowpoke, and it is the Water Pulse that's resisted damage. That's going to guarantee this win here, as now all I need to do is farm up to back-to-back Psyshocks. The opponent goes for the Aerial Ace, and now we're at back-to-back, so of course from this range this will be enough damage to get the KO up against the Mantine, and then even resisted from this range up against the Registeel, Psyshock from my Slowpoke gets the KO, and I'm able to take that game. So GG's to opponent there into the next battle. We see Slowpoke into Shadow Alolan Sandslash. So once again, very bad lead for me, but I've realised that again, they're probably going to have 2 water types in the back. This time I can stay in just because it's the Shadow Claw damage that's dealing super effective damage here, but I can live a drill run, so I'm going to fire off the Water Pulse. If they no-shield this, I think I'm going to swap straight away into my Shadow Magnemite, and they would make it to a Charge Move there, so I would have had to shield if they got there, but again, they're going to swap into their Jellicent, and this is perfect. I can shield up the Surf. I didn't want to throw straight away because I wanted to throw it on good timing. Again, going to farm to 100 energy. This time we get off the Charge Move, and Discharge is going to get the KO. If the opponent comes back in with the Sandslash, then this is a clear indication that they've got something incredibly weak to the Magnemite in the back, and there it is. It's another Mantine. Just going to go for 2 Volt Switches, go for a Discharge. Discharge, obviously going to grab a shield there. Going to go for Discharge number 2, grab the final shield, and then I'm actually just going to stay in with my Magnemite, force the opponent to throw their energy. They have to throw pretty much straight away there because 1 more Volt Switch is going to get them very low, but at this point Lileep can sweep this end game here. Unfortunately, unlike Credilli, Lileep has only got Ancient Power as a rock type charge move, which definitely isn't as good, but we do get some very nice boosts in future battles, so do get excited for that. But either way, Ancient Power doesn't quite get the KO there, but I'm able to outpace them to the next charge move, and Ancient Power number 2 takes out the Mantine, and I'm able to take that game. So GG's to opponent there into next game. We see Lantern in the lead, so obviously not great. Gonna say swap into my Lileep, and the opponent responds with a Force Palm Lucario, so probably one of the worst things we could see, but Lucario is very glassy, so 2 Grass Knots will actually be enough to get the KO here. So the opponent is gonna throw on perfect timing, throwing on the CMP tie there, so unfortunately Thunder Punch does just barely take us out there. It is resisted damage, so Lileep could have maybe lived that, but unfortunately it does just barely take us out. We're now going to come in with Slowpoke. I know I can live a Thunder Punch. They didn't farm up to a potential Shadow Ball. We can now go for the Confusion farm down, but unfortunately if there is the team that Homesize Henry and Dan Ottawa and a few others have already showcased with Escavalier in the back, there's just nothing we can do other than hope that for whatever reason the opponent calls a bait here, but Discharge gets shielded, and it's now game over as they can just come in. Well, we come in with a Slowpoke. We've got 2 shields. We can't do much with them, so just going to no shield. Aerial Ace actually doesn't take us out there, but 2 more counters does the job, and unfortunately we do lose that game. So GG's to opponent there into next game. We see Ferrothorn in the lead, so once again, awful lead matchup for me, but we're going to safe swap into Lily, and it's exactly what we want. We bait out the Poliwrath, and technically all three Pokemon are decently strong into Poliwrath, but because we are weak to counter, both Lileep and Magnemite aren't going to do amazingly well. But you're going to see Lileep is bulky enough to tank that Charge Move and make it to a second Grass Knot. Now, of course, they just debuffed my attack, so they do live that, but we do get them fairly low, and we've got a shield advantage, which is definitely what we need up against a Ferrothorn, because my entire team can't really do anything up against Ferrothorn. I think every single move is resisted up against Ferrothorn, but they've got a Lantern in the back, and now things are looking much better for us. I can just safely shield up the Surf here. Gonna overfarm a little bit, go for the Discharge, and Discharge should put them into 1 Volt Switch farm down range, which is the perfect farm down there, as if they weren't quite in that farm down range, they would have made it to another Surf, and now we're just gonna spam Magnet Bombs over and over again. Magnet Bomb is resisted damage, but it does like huge damage to the Ferrothorn, but likewise Power Whip would get the KO here, so I'm gonna swap Catch the Move onto my Slowpoke, realizing they're at back-to-back Charge Moves there, and I'm basically gonna force them to either throw a Charge Move, or I'm gonna make it to the Water Pulse, and Water Pulse hopefully grabs the final shield from the opponent. It does grab that final shield, and we've already got another Magnet Bomb loaded, so I'm going to throw it straight away into the Ferrothorn, and Magnet Bomb gets the KO, and I'm able to take that game. So GG's to opponent there into next game. We see Lucario in the lead, so definitely where we want to see it with this team. The opponent's going to stay in with Lucario initially. I can live a Thunder Punch, so I'm actually going to no-shield this. It's a little bit risky because, of course, if they take out my Slowpoke eventually, then I'm going to be in a lot of trouble, but either way, I'm going to go and fire off a Psyshock. Psyshock grabs a shield from the opponent, and they commit to a full counter farm down. So not ideal for me, but we can come in with the Magnemite. I assume they're just going to throw straight away. So what we're going to do is go for that Volt Switch, and Volt Switch should get the KO. So I'm definitely going to shield. They go for the Shadow Ball. That definitely would have taken us out there. And now they're going to come in with a Registeel. So this is okay with me. Definitely where we want to see it. I think I said definitely about 8 times in this battle. Well, come on, man. What's up with this commentary? Either way, I'm going to shield this now. And we are going to see the opponent goes for a Focus Blast. Can I get a full Volt Switch farm down here? It doesn't look like it. So again, we're going to swap, hopefully catch a Charge Move onto Lileep. I mean, it's going to be the Focus Blast this time. They wouldn't go for a Zap Cannon there. And the opponent's actually going to come in with a Jellicent. And this is actually slightly problematic for me. You're going to see Grass Knot doesn't quite get the KO there, and they can farm up perfectly, throwing just before we make it to the next Charge Move. They're going to go for a Surf. I'm hoping 1 Volt Switch gets the KO, but they live with about 2 HP, or even 1 HP, I don't know, it's hard to tell, but Shadow Ball gets the KO there, and unfortunately we do lose that game. But GG's to opponent there, very well played. Into the next battle, we're going to see Escavalier in the lead, so this is okay. We are resisting the counters. I doubt they're going to run Mega Horn here, so they go for a Drill Run. We can live that fairly well. We're going to go for a Water Pulse. I did wait 1 turn just to make sure they don't catch it onto a Water Pokemon. They're actually going to shield that, but they swap into Lantern, and now that is perfect for me. We can come in with our Lileep, and we are going to no-shield the first move. We're resisting the Spark damage. Surf is neutral, but it doesn't do much damage. Lileep is very bulky. I actually don't have a clue what its stat product is, but you're going to see later in this battle, it turns out Lileep has a lower attack stat than the Lantern, so we are going to let the next Surf go through, and then going to overfarm here. I'm going to throw on the CMP type with this Lantern, and you can see, unfortunately, we lose CMP here. I think I would have just barely lived this, but I'm going to shield anyways, just to preserve some health. Going to go for the Ancient Power here. Ancient Power is going to be no shielded, but we get the boost, and that's actually really good for me, because I can now go for a boosted Ancient Power. Ancient Power grabs the shield from the opponent, and because we're boosted in our defense, I make it to a 3rd Ancient Power. Ancient Power, he's going to get them fairly low, and again, they're in range where 1 Volt Switch will get the KO, so we come in with the Shadow Magnemite, definitely just going to shield whatever they throw, and I'm hoping it's going to be double water in the back once again, and there's a Jellicent. We can go for 2 Volt Switches, fire off the Discharge, and Discharge gets the KO up against the Jellicent once again, and I'm able to take that game. So GG's to opponent there into next game. We see Slowpoke into Mantine, so this is fine with me, but I've got 2 Pokemon that are much better, so I think I will tank a Charge Move and then eventually swap out of this matchup. But we're going to see there. So we're actually going to tank the move, not even bother throwing a Charge Move there. And again, we bait out the Poliwrath, and that's great. And that's the reason Slowpoke is actually working quite well in the lead, because we're actually forcing the opponent to come in with their Poliwrath here, because they know up against the Slowpoke, it's completely walled. But again, they throw on poor timing, and that allows me to make it to a Grass Knot. And yes, we are debuffed, so they should live this, and they do let it go through. But absolutely okay with me. We're going to wait out the switch clock here, come back in with the Slowpoke, because Slowpoke, I think 1 confusion, actually doesn't quite take them out there, so they're able to make it to another charge move, but fine with me. Slowpoke can tank this very comfortably, but unfortunately they've got Whiscash in the back, and that's one of the worst things that Magnemite can see. Unfortunately, there aren't too many mod boys in this meta. There were a lot more the previous time we had the Fossil Cup, but Whiscash is just going to completely destroy Magnemite. So we're going to stay in here. I'm hoping the opponent will just fully sacrifice a Whiscash, maybe come back in with the Mantine, but I'm going to have to double shield here. So this might make it pretty obvious that we're weak to Whiscash in the back, and even worse, the opponent makes the catch there. Perfect play from them, realizing we would just barely outpace them to the charge move. And yeah, unfortunately, there's not a lot we can do now. I was hoping that I'd catch an Aerial Ace or something, but Water Pulse does huge damage there. We can go for the Volt Switch farm down, but it doesn't really help me. 2 more Mud Shots, gets the KO. They come out with a charge move loaded, so really well played by the opponent there. Mud Bomb taking out the Slowpoke, and unfortunately, we do lose that game. But GG's, into the next battle, we're going to see a Pelipper in the lead. So pretty similar thing. We've got 2 Pokemon that are going to be marginally better here, but they're not even going to farm to a Hurricane. So I'm definitely just going to no-shield this. Weather Ball doesn't do much damage. It's resisted. I expect that they're going to shield this because Psyshock would do quite a lot of damage up against the Pelipper. Pelipper fairly glassy. We're now going to swap into Lileep, and again, I'm happy to just no-shield whatever. Lileep is kind of my damage sponge on this team. Hurricane just doesn't do that much damage. We can make it to an Ancient Power. Ancient Power will, of course, get the KO from this range, and the opponent actually uses their shield. They're also going to throw straight away, and the opponent goes for a Weather Ball, which we hang on to, and we're able to make it to another Ancient Power. Lileep putting in so much work here, getting the KO, and they come in with a Ferrothorn, and once again, up 2 shields. This is pretty good for the Shadow Magnemite. They're also Shadow, so we're going to deal more damage here, but likewise, Power Whip would do huge resisted damage, so definitely just going to respect it. We're now going to go for a Magnet Bomb here. I'm going to be careful of what they got in the back, so going to fire off the Magnet Bomb here. I'm not going to throw straight away, because if they try and make like a Magnet Bomb catch onto something else, then that might not be ideal, but they've got a Mantine in the back, so once again, we can fire off the Discharge. Discharge gets the one shot. We can now fire off a Magnet Bomb, and of course, from this range, up against a Shadow Ferrothorn, it gets the KO, and I'm able to take that game. So a bit of a strange team there, running an ABA double water flying team with Ferrothorn in the middle. But speaking of Ferrothorn, we're going to swap into Lileep, and unfortunately this time around, they don't take the bait and swap straight away into a Poliwrath. Instead, they're staying in, realizing that actually, they're going to completely wall Lileep here. There's literally nothing we can do. Bullet Seeds are double resisted, Grass Knot double resisted, Ancient Power single resisted, but it might as well be double resisted, looking at the damage we're dealing here. So definitely not ideal, and this is the correct play, over farming from the opponent there. They go for a Power Whip, taking us out. But I think they're 1 Bullet Seed away from the next Power Whip. So going to come in with the Shadow Magnemite here, and the opponent is actually going to overfarm here. I didn't throw straight away just in case they tried to make a catch. Instead, I go for the extra Volt Switch, and they actually go for a Thunder there, which is very unnecessary. Don't really know why they did that. I think both Power Whip and Thunder are single resisted, so might as well just go for the Power Whip there. But either way, we get the KO. They come in with a Jellicent, so I'm going for 2 Volt Switches. Going to go for the Discharge here. Discharge, as we've seen already, after 2 Volt Switches, would get the KO. The opponent is going to outpace me to the next charge move, so I'm going to shield this, and the opponent full sets a Shadow Ball, probably not realizing just how glassy we are, so we're going to swap, make the catch onto my Slowpoke, as the opponent goes for a Surf Bait, and they're now going to come in with an Air Slash Skarmory. Now, this is not ideal. If it was a Steel Wing Skarmory, I think honestly we'd be okay, because I can live a Brave Bird from pretty much full health on my Slowpoke, but with the Air Slash damage, they can actually just take me out with a Sky Attack here, I do believe. So, of course, no shields remaining. They throw just before we make it to the next Water Pulse. I thought I was at back-to-back charge moves, but I wasn't. I am 1 Volt Switch away, or like very few energy away, but unfortunately, that's going to be a full 4 turns away from the next charge move, and even a double resisted Sky Attack gets the KO there. So unfortunately, we do lose that game. But GG's to the opponent there, very well played. Into next battle, we see Escavalier in the lead once again, so they're actually going to overfarm. No, never mind, they didn't farm up that much. I think this could still be a Mega Horn, but I'm going to no-shield anyways, expecting them to be on Aerial Ace and Drill Run, or worst case scenario, like Acid Spray and Drill Run, but either way, I don't expect a Mega Horn there, so I think at this point, I will shield this just because I've got either low fast move pressure, or I'm just going to take a ton of damage from the counters on my Shadow Magnemite. But either way, we go for a Side Shock. Side Shock grabs the final shield, and now we're going to swap into Lileep. Now Lileep can tank anything they throw. I think even a Mega Horn wouldn't take us out there, but pretty clear they don't have it. We're now going to fire off the Ancient Power, and from this range, Ancient Power gets the KO. We don't get a boost, but they come in with Registeel, so I'm going to try and throw on CMP with a Focus Blast, and have they just thrown on CMP there? Grass Knot doesn't do much damage, and it is the CMP tie, so that's perfect for me. Of course, I'm going to let the Lileep go down. Hopefully they've got a Water type in the back, but they have shown double Steel so far, so again, not going to throw straight away. I know this will be a Focus Blast, as it would have been a CMP tie if they went for Zap Cannon, but now they're going to come in with the Mantine, and again, it's going to be straight in and straight out, as Jamie Finn would say. Get that Mantine off my screen. We can now fire off a Discharge into the Registeel coming back in, and Discharge takes out the metal can there, or the metal trash can, or whatever he calls it, the big tin can, I can't remember. But either way, we take out the Registeel, and I'm able to take that game. Into next battle, Poliwrath, great lead for us. The opponent is choosing to stay in for some reason. Then swapping into Jellicent. I'm a little bit slow to swap out there, but we come in with Lileep. I realized obviously I could come in with either Pokemon, but Lileep is much safer. So get a no shield the first move. Shadow Ball does just under 50% of our health, but with the Hex damage, a second Shadow Ball probably will KO. So we're going to fire off the Grass Knot, unfortunately losing CMP here, but it doesn't really matter because a Grass Knot barely doesn't KO from this range, so either way I would have had to use my shield there anyways. Grass Knot doesn't quite take them out. One more Bullet Seed does the job, and they're going to come back in with the Poliwrath, and we're able to make it to yet another Grass Knot. And if my Switch Clock is up already, I think I'm just going to swap and snipe with the Slowpoke. I don't really care too much about what's in the back. We're going to take out this Poliwrath that was absolutely loaded, and they've got a Shadow Skarmory in the back, so this is going to be a very easy win. I'm actually forcing them to throw straight away, and this way we can just make this game a lot faster as we come in with the Shadow Magnemite, and they're just going to concede the match immediately as they had no play up against the Magnemite, and I'm able to take that game. So GG's to the opponent there. Into the next game, we see Ferrothorn in the lead once again, and this time they are going to swap into their Poliwrath, which is much better for me than them staying in with the Ferrothorn. And again, we're going to no shield Discharge Move as the opponent goes for the Icy Wind, and it seems like Lileep is just barely going to be able to make it to a second Grass Knot once again, so very nice. Lileep goes for the Grass Knot, dealing big damage. And let's see, we're going to come back in with the Slowbro, of course, Slowpoke, and we're going to go for one Confusion, get the farm down. We're not quite able to swap out in time here, so I think I will just stay in. I'm going to force them to throw. I should still barely live this. Slowpoke is fairly bulky. We're now going to swap into our Shadow Magnemite, and it just depends what they've got in the back. They're able to outpace me to the next charge move, but that's okay. They go for a Thunder once again. I'm not really sure why they've done that, but either way, gonna fire off a Magnet Bomb here. Honestly, I should have overfarmed slightly more than this, because if they swap out when we're not at back-to-back charge moves, that will be problematic. They're gonna go for a Power Whip here, and they swap into Jellicent, and I realize I can only go for 2 Volt Switches there as they get a 0-turn swap. We go for Discharge, grab the final shield, but because they get a 0-turn swap, they outpace me by 1 turn, making it to the Surf. And now, unfortunately, Slowpoke is too low here. I'm going to fire off the charge move anyways, just to see how much damage it does. But the Hex takes us out there, and unfortunately, we do lose that game. So GG so far there. Into next game, we see Skarmory in the lead, so I can't really swap out of this matchup. I know, of course, Lileep isn't going to take super effective damage from these air slashes, whereas if they were running Steel Wing, then we would take super effective. But either way, Magnemite has such a dominant matchup, so just going to go for the Water Pulse. I should actually live a Brave Bird here, so if the opponent full sends it, which they do, we hang on, but we don't make it to another charge move. We can come in with the Shadow Magnemite, get the full Volt Switch farm down, and unfortunately they have a Mud Boy in the form of Quagsire in the back, but they've also got Lantern, and this is perfect for Lileep. We're going to no shield here. We've seen it already. Serve really doesn't do that much damage up against Lileep, but we do know, I mean, we've just proved it here again. We lose CMP up against the Lantern, so that's okay, but it is something we need to take into consideration. So, going to fire off 3 Bullet Seeds there, throwing on good timing, just before they make it to the next charge move. But unfortunately, once again, I don't think we're quite going to be able to go for a full Bullet Seed farm down here. But we do know not to throw the Ancient Power straight away, instead committing to the farm down. Gonna use my first shield. Quagsire will make it to a charge move up against Lileep as well, but that's okay. They're not making it to 2 moves here, so I safely shield up the Mud Bomb. Gonna farm to 100 energy, fire off the first Grass Knot, and I'm pretty certain they're not at a second charge move here, so we throw straight away, and Grass Knot number 2 will of course one-shot the Quagsire, and I'm able to take that game. So GG set up on their internet's going to see Lantern in the lead once again. So going to say swap into Lilip, and this time met with the Escavalier, but probably going to be the same team with Lucario in the back. So going to fire off the Ancient Power. We can actually grab shields in this matchup because I can tank a charge move as well. The opponent actually going to overfarm here. So firing off Ancient Power, number 2, grabbing a shield, and I realize actually I might as well shield once here because if I can get all shields down, maybe that's the best chance for my Shadow Magnemite to sweep in the end game. So actually, no, never mind. Whoa, I can't even talk right now. I am going to double shield here to make sure I get off all shields from the opponent's end as well, and hopefully that will allow me to sweep with my Magnemite, but all shields down, Magnemite isn't going to be able to tank anything, so maybe not the brightest play, but let's see what happens here. Going to come in with the Slowpoke, going to tank all of these charge moves, and then it just kind of depends how fast they swap into their Lucario, and also if they're running Force Palm, they're basically going to one-shot me with fast moves, so going to swap into Magnemite straight away. They come in with Lucario, and look at that fast move damage. We wouldn't have even tanked 4 Force Palms there. Discharge gets the KO, but it doesn't matter. They can Spark Farm me down from that range. That is painful, and yeah, we might as well not bother throwing a charge move here. The opponent goes for a Thunderbolt, just guaranteeing the KO, or going for the BM, unnecessary BM there, but either way, they take me out there, and we do unfortunately lose that game. But GG still up on there into next game, and once again baiting out a Poliwrath, which is absolutely fine with me. I'm going to fire off the Grass Knot here, and Grass Knot is going to grab a shield from the opponent, and previously all the other Poliwrath have thrown on poor timing. This one is going to throw just before we make it to the next charge move, and because they throw on good timing, it might also be IV dependent, but either way, they take me out before I make it to the second Grass Knot. But honestly, that might be fine with me as well, because now we can come in with the Slowpoke, just tank this energy, and come out with so much energy of our own. So this might be better for us. Again, going to make it to another charge move. Just going to be the Icy Wind, but that's okay. We're going to swap out immediately and clear the debuff, so it doesn't make a difference here. They're going to come in with Mantine, and this is going to be game over, as we've still got a shield advantage. I'm firing off the Discharge here. Discharge goes unshielded by the opponent there, probably realizing that if they were going to farm up to back-to-back wild charges, they needed to let a move through whilst they weren't debuffed. But either way, Shadow Magnemite going on absolute rampage there, and the opponent just concedes the match. So GG set up there into next game. We're going to see a Mantine in the lead. So once again, fine with me, but I would prefer it against one of my other Pokemon. So going to tank the energy, going to bank a Psy Shock, and then I'm going to swap into my Lilip. Actually banked a Water Pulse there. Not that it really makes a difference, but either way, we catch the Aerial Ace, fine with me, and the opponent's choosing to stay in with their Mantine. So possibly going to be a triple water team. That would be pretty crazy, but actually, water is the strongest typing in this meta pretty much, so it makes sense. We're going to no shield. They go for the Water Pulse. Still doesn't do that much damage. I can massively overfarm, going for 3 more Bullet Seeds, going for an Ancient Power. Ancient Power gets the KO, and let's see what the opponent wants to do. They actually come in with Ferrothorn, and this is problematic for me, so I don't really know what to do here. I can't really afford to just let them farm me down, so instead we swap into our Shadow Magnemite, and they've got a Swampert in the back, so yeah, obviously if I didn't swap out there, then I still would have been screwed because they'd have a loaded Ferrothorn, which is basically the worst thing my team can see, but also very bad is having a Swampert fully Mudshot farm me down. My only win condition here is if the opponent baits unnecessarily, but the opponent is just going to play it safe, go for the Earthquake, get in the KO, and they're able to Mudshot farm down my Lilip, and unfortunately we do lose that game. But GG still up on their into next game. We see Lantern in the lead once again, but this time they're actually staying in, so hopefully this is an indication that they're not running Escavalier or Lucario in the back, as otherwise they probably would have just swapped straight away. But they actually come in with a Mantine, so this might be a triple water team this time around with Mantine and maybe Pelipper in the back, because I can imagine neither of those things are going to want to swap into a loaded Lilip. But either way, going to fire off the Ancient Power here. We will make it to another Ancient Power if they use the shield, but unfortunately, as we've seen already, Ancient Power does less than 50% of the health of a Mantine, so they do just barely live that. But that's okay. I'm happy to let this go through. Assuming it is the Pelipper in the back, we're just going to come in with our Shadow Magnemite, go for the Volt Switch farm down, and this should be game over. Of course, they're going to come back in with the Lantern. I'm not going to throw straight away here. Instead, I'm going to overfarm. I realise Discharge won't get the KO from full health there, but they are going to make the catch onto their Pelipper. So we're going to go for a slight undercharge here. Even a nice Discharge almost one-shots the Pelipper, Pelipper, we only get off one more Volt Switch, but it doesn't matter. They're not a back-to-back surfs, so I can safely shield up the surf here, go for the first discharge. This will grab the final shield from the opponent, but I'm already at discharge number 2, so we can fire it off straight away into the Lantern. And of course, from this range, discharge gets the KO. We also get 100 wins for the Go Battle research there, and I'm able to take that game. So GG's to opponent there. Into next game we see a Pelipper in the lead once again. So once again, fine lead matchup for me. This time they are at least going to farm up to a potential Hurricane. So I'm going to fire off a Side Shock first, as we do just barely outpace them. We're then going to swap into Lilip here, and the opponent's going to fire off a Charge Move. Fine with me, I can sponge this easily on my Lilip. They go for a Weather Ball there, and now they swap into Escavalier. So again, going to fire off the Ancient Power here. 2 Ancient Powers does get them pretty low, and we get the boost as well, which is huge for me, because now this Ancient Power probably will grab a shield from the opponent. It grabs that shield, but because we're going to boost our defense here, I can actually shield this if I want to, and then fire off another Ancient Power, and I will be able to retain alignment here, which means I can align my Magnemite up against the Pelipper. I tried to swap straight away there. You can see it doesn't actually register, which is very frustrating. They've got quite a lot of energy, but if they don't throw after at least one wing attack there, then the second Volt Switch will take them out, and they've got a Ferrothorn in the back. Now this is actually really scary for me. All shields down Ferrothorn, very problematic for my team. We go for the Magnet Bomb. That doesn't do that much damage, but the next Volt Switch does put them into the yellow health range. So we tank that there. I'm going to bank the Magnet Bomb, swap into my Slowpoke, and just force the opponent to throw straight away. The opponent goes for the Power Whip there, making sure I don't get off a Charge Move, but I can overfarm, going for 2 Volt Switches, throwing on perfect timing here, and Magnet Bomb gets the KO up against the Ferrothorn, and I'm able to take that game. So GG's to opponent there. Into next game we see Slowpoke into a Shadow Magnezone. So going to say swap into my Lilip. This is also a bit of a core breaker to the team, but I can live a Mirror Shot reasonably well. So going to no shield the first one. Mirror Shot does not drop my attack, which is really nice. And now we can fire off a Grass Knot here. Grass Knot is resisted, but it does over 50% of their health, or at least 50%. Adding on to the Bullet Seed damage there. I'm going to no shield once again, and you can see Lilip is actually going to win the 0 shield scenario up against a Shadow Magnezone, which is pretty crazy. But either way, we're going to grab a shield advantage from the Magnezone. We are going to wait out the switch clock here, and then come in with my Shadow Magnemite. So Shadow Magnemite would get a lot of damage off there. If they throw one Charge Move, we can just probably farm them down. So instead, they swap into a Shadow for Alligator, so I think they're trying to bait out my Slowpoke there. Otherwise, I'm not really sure why they'd swap into it, but either way, we fall for the bait as we come in with the Slowpoke. I'm hoping that it's going to be double water in the back, and Shadow Magnemite can sweep once again. We actually barely hang on there, which is really nice. Gonna fire off the Side Shock. Side Shock gets the KO, but they were successful there because they bait out the Slowpoke, which is a hard counter to the Poliwrath, and unfortunately, they can just counter, farm me down, and we do end up losing that game. So GG's to the opponent, really well played. Into next battle, we're going to see a Shadow Poliwrath in the lead. They're going to say swap into Registeel. Not ideal for me, but we can come in with the Shadow Magnemite. I'm going to overfarm here, farming 2 back-to-back discharges before throwing, and they do go for the Focus Blast there, which means they don't drop my attack. Discharge is going to be no shielded. I have to fire off a second discharge to get the KO here, and discharge is going to grab a shield from the opponent, and that's fine with me. At this point, I'm happy to shield this up here, and then go for a full Volt Switch farm down. I'm going to be 1 away from the next charge move as they come back in with the Shadow Poliwrath. Fine with me. Gonna fire off the discharge immediately. Discharge is going to grab that final shield from the opponent, and they're going to swap. I thought that was going to be another Shadow Magnezone, but it's actually a Magneton, and this is way worse because Magnet Bomb puts me into farm down range, and that is so bad. Maybe here I should have gone for the Ancient Power because I would have made it to the next Ancient Power slightly faster, but you can see I actually wouldn't have got there in time anyways. It doesn't really matter, and Discharge from this range doesn't quite take us out there, but they can Volt Switch, farm me down, get a simultaneous KO there, and unfortunately we do lose that game. But again, very well played to that opponent there. Into next battle, gonna see Escavalier in the lead, so this is fine with me. We've seen already, most Escavalier aren't running, I was going to say aren't running Mega Horn, but they make a really nice catch there, catching the resisted Water Pulse onto Mantine. So we're going to bank some energy. I tried to catch an Aerial Ace there, but of course with a 4-turn fast move, it's very difficult to catch charge moves, but they're actually going to go for a Bubble Beam here, so fine with me. Just going to no-shield the next move as well, as we can live this, as they go for another Bubble Beam, and actually because they've double debuffed my attack, if they come back in with Escavalier, they might just let this move go through, which is actually way better for me. So Discharge coming through, goes unshielded, and it puts them into farm down range for my Slowpoke. Now, of course, they do have a lot of energy here, so going to come in with the Slowpoke. I'm going to no-shield the first move, again, expecting it not to be a Mega Horn. It's just a drill run, fine with me. They're going to come in with a Pelipper, and we can come in with our Lileep. Now, we're going to go for the Ancient Power straight away. Ancient Power wouldn't KO from full health, but by the time they've used both their shields, Ancient Power probably would get the knockout, so I'm going to no-shield the first move. I don't expect them to full send a Hurricane there, and they do just go for the Weather Ball, but honestly, Weather Balls will start to chip over time, so I'm going to shield the next move, go for one more Bullet Seed, always making sure I throw after at least one Bullet Seed here to throw on good timing up against the Pelipper. At this point, I can live the next move. I know Escavalier is very close to a charge move, and they can swap at this point, so I actually swap first. We go for the Confusion Farm Down up against the Escavalier, unintentionally as well, and now we can go for a Side Shock. Side Shock puts them into range where this is just going to guarantee the KO for the Ancient Power. They're not at back-to-back charge moves, so Ancient Power will get the KO up against the Pelipper, and I'm able to take that game. So GG to the opponent there, into the next game we see Jellicent in the lead, so obviously not great, going to say swap into my Lileep, and the opponent, well you can see we're getting a lot of visual lag there, they're going to bank some energy and then swap into Registeel, so this is pretty much as bad as it gets. Registeel can easily tank this, although they can't massively overfarm here. But they kind of can, because we've seen already, Focus Blast doesn't quite take us out there, so they can actually go for a huge lock-on farm down, which is probably worst case scenario for me. But either way, gonna fire off the Grass Knot there. We actually just barely miss out on the next Grass Knot, so I'm not even gonna be able to come in with my Shadow Magnemite and get a full Volt Switch farm down either. So yeah, definitely not great, but we're gonna swap into Slowpoke, hopefully once again catching a Focus Blast, and we do catch the resisted Focus Blast there. They're gonna bank a little bit of energy, excuse me there, and then swap into their Jellicent. So firing off a Side Shock doesn't do too much damage here. The opponent will have to fire off a Shadow Ball to get the KO, so I'm going to no-shield this. They do full send the Shadow Ball there, fine with me. We can come in with the Magnemite, and if they go for a Shadow Ball here, then actually I think we can commit to a full Volt Switch farm down, and we will get that farm down. So let's just see what the opponent wants to do. They come back in with Registeel. I'm going to fire this off because they did overfarm a little bit, and we've seen a few times already, I've lost track of the energy on the Registeel, and you can see they would have actually outpaced me to a Focus Blast if I didn't throw that straight away, and we will now be able to go for a huge Volt Switch farm down. If it's another Water type in the back, then we win, but unfortunately, again, it's going to be a Ferrothorn, and now we're down shields and down health. There's just nothing we can do here. Two Magna Bombs just barely won't KO, and they're actually going to outpace me to the Power Whip at this point in time. They actually didn't throw straight away there because they realized we're not at back-to-back Magna Bombs, it wouldn't take us out, so might as well maximize, go for one extra Bullet Seed, go for the Power Whip, and they do take us out there. But GG's to the opponent, and once again, leading into another Ferrothorn. Once again, gonna say swap into Leap, and again, they're not swapping out here, so definitely not great for me. They go for the Power Whip. I'm always going to overfarm here because I don't want the opponent to like swap out and make a catch unnecessarily. So we're going to go for the Ancient Power here. And again, not going to bother throwing. And the opponent does try and make that catch, but they swap into Poliwrath. And this is actually great for me because this energy is going to be useful. We land the Power Whip, and now we can fire off an Ancient Power. Sorry, not Power Whip. Grass Knot there. And Ancient Power grabs a shield from that range. And this is actually not too bad for us. So we are going to come in with a Slowpoke. They will make it to a charge move, but either way, it's going to be resisted damage, so I don't really care. They go for Dynamic Punch there, so they actually don't drop my attack, but it doesn't really make a difference here. I'm not going to swap out because I know Ferrothorn has a ton of loaded energy, so instead, what I'm going to do is just force them to throw their energy into my Slowpoke. They could have overfarmed a little bit more than that, but they choose not to. We're going to come in with the Shadow Magnemite, and at this point, I'm going to have to shield this up here as they go for the Power Whip. Power Whip is, of course, resisted, but I don't know what's in the back here, and even if they do have a Water type in the back, they might just be able to fully fast speed farm me down if I let a Power Whip go through. And you can see it's actually a Jellicent in the back, so I overfarm as much as possible, going for 3 Volt Switches, throwing on the CMP tie, Discharge, gets the KO. They come back in with the Ferrothorn, and honestly, I've not kept track of that energy, but I'm hoping I can still throw on good timing, go for 2 more Volt Switches, and from this range, does this KO? It does take out the Ferrothorn, and once again beating a core breaker for this team, and I'm able to take that game. So that's going to be it for today's video. If you did enjoy it, please make sure you leave a like, leave a comment letting me know, and as well, don't forget to respond to the question of the day if you haven't done so already. And if you want to see more content like this in the future, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on post notifications. That way you'll be notified whenever I upload a new video. And if you want to take your support even further, you can now become a channel member with perks including early access to new videos, shoutouts at the end of each video, video, custom loyalty badges, and custom emojis to use in the comments. I want to say a massive thank you to everyone that has already become a channel member. Your support is greatly appreciated, and with that being said, thank you all so much for watching today's video, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.